Number 9 gives us a graph, and what we have to be able to do here is interpret what's happening in the graph. We've talked about this whole Mathlish and English thing. So let's call this Graphlish, I guess, if you want, because instead of being kind of numbers and symbols and equation, we're still telling a story. It's just that the story is within a picture, so we just have to be able to go from the picture into words. So it says, it shows the relationship between the number of months that Paul, so number of months, we got the number of months that Paul drives his car. So that's one idea. And then the total miles driven during that time. So he's over time, so over how many months, basically how many miles is he's putting on his car. So the first question says, well, what does the point on the graph represent? So what does that point represent right there? Well, if we go over on the x-axis, which is time, it says 4 months, so that point would be 4 and then 6,000. And then we just want to look at to see what each thing represents. Well, this represents months, and then this represents miles. Now, we don't want to leave our answer that way. We want to kind of put it together in a complete sentence here. So we could say, well, what does that point represent? Well, it represents that during or over the course of 4 months, comma, Paul traveled 6,000 miles. So this is what we mean kind of about this Mathlish to English, is that this is our Mathlish or our Graphlish, and then we're just basically just saying, well, what does that mean, right? Now the question says, well, how many miles does, if we know that over 4 months he went 6,000 miles, the question then is that, well, how many miles did he go per month? If I look at 1 month, right, per month means that per means 1 month. So how many miles was he putting on there in 1 month? Well, if I look at it, it looks like I want to say it's halfway in between 1,000 and 2,000, which it looks like that'd be 1,500. But we don't want to guess because maybe the graph is a little off or something. So let's make sure. So we knew that if it was 6,000 in 4 months, let's maybe go to another one that we do know, because you see at that point it doesn't clearly go. So let's try another one. So if we went up in 2 months, he does 3,000. Well, if he does 3,000 miles in 2 months, well, if we divided that must mean that he goes 1,500 miles in 1 month. Right, so that ends up being equivalent there. Ends up being the same thing. So how many miles does he drive in 1 month? Well, he drives 1,500 miles. So that actually would officially be our answer there. We already kind of started doing part C. Part C says to explain your answer to part B. Well, so how we explained it here is that we could have done this, by the way, with 6,000. So had we taken 6,000 divided by 4, we would have got exactly the same thing, 1,500. The mental math on that, if you just think about how many times does 15, if you counted by 15s, 15 plus 15 is 30, plus another 15 is 45, plus another 15 is 60, and then just throw on the other 2 zeros. So that's where we get 6,000 from. As far as kind of explaining our answer here, well, what we could say is that if he drives, we're going to kind of put into words basically what we just did right here, which is that if he drives 3,000 miles in 2 months, then he drives 1,500 miles, 1,500, in 1 month. So we're just, again, Mathless to English here. This was our Mathlish. Even this, right? Here's our Mathlish. So we're just translating that into words. All right. So hey, you're almost there. Hang in there. This was number 9. So look at 9.2 on the right, and then we'll finish up with number 10.